Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the Frying Pan podcast. Now, there are certain things that they said mankind would never do, like walking on the moon or, exploring the new world. And the Frying Pan podcast today celebrates a very special day, a day in which we reach double figures in our podcast. So welcome to the Frying Pan episode number 10. I should add in a rather sort of disconsolate note that actually we have done 10 before this, as we had a two-parter with a decimal point. So that negates the previous intro, but nonetheless, we're on round 10 now, and that is something to be certainly commended with the achievements of mankind of late. I'm joined, as always, by friend and fellow writer Rowan Kane. Rowan, how you doing there?
I'm doing well. It's very hot, very humid. There's no air conditioning right here. So I'm sweating and it's hot out when you're wearing these kind of headphones that we're wearing, the kind of over-ear kind, and your ears are just starting to sweat. And when you get the ear sweat is a very, very unique to the more tropic regions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm all right, but hot.
All right, but hot. You catch us at a transitionary moment as the weather in Spain is on the way down, and the weather in Indonesia, I believe, is on the way up. Is this correct?
Yeah, we're getting into not quite the rainy season, but the rainy season is approaching, and the rainy season here is the summer, the technical summer. So summer in the southern hemisphere. So it is heating up, if it wasn't already hot. So. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I wish you all the best of luck. Having come from the summer here, which was charmless to say the least, I can only wish you the best. At the moment, we have also a large degree of humidity due to the storms coming in off the Atlantic, which means it's humid as, to excuse my French, humid as fuck here also, which has brought a plague of flies and mosquitoes with it, which is joyful. I assume this will also be the case where you are.
Yeah, as soon as it rained once. It rained a couple weeks ago. It hasn't really rained much of late, but it rained a couple weeks ago, and all the buggers came out. So yeah,
it's weak. Yeah. Well, we know it. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us wherever you're listening from. And today we're going to look into the first of possibly a two-part series about language. This, in the name of progress, this part did not merit a decimal point as the last two-parter did merit, but we'll see how we go. And today we're going to be talking about probably one of the defining factors of the moving abroad experience, which is language. And I think on the first part, we're going to talk about the language of Rowan's chosen destination, Indonesia. Tell me, Rowan, just before we go into this, what's your background in languages? What did you know from school?
Well, English. But I studied French for 6 years, and I'll come back to that a little bit later, where my French has gone. But studied French for 6 years in school, so have a decent control of that language. Nothing near fluent, but enough to kind of get by. And dabbled in Spanish a little bit, just because I visited Spain a couple times and the languages are close. So, but I think I've fallen back on pero, but like sí, pero, yes, but sí, pero, and a couple other pretty mundane phrases.
Okay. Excellent. So, to be quite honest with you, the language, give us a little background about what the language of Indonesia. I believe you have some sort of one that unites the lot. Is that correct? And then a ridiculous volume of smaller languages. Yeah.
So there's hundreds of regional languages, but the lingua franca of Indonesia is called Bahasa Indonesia. And Bahasa means language. So when you say the French language, when you say French, when I'm speaking French, I'm speaking Bahasa Prancis. But it's a Malay. It's from the Malay. It's a Malay dialect, that is Malay, as in Malaysia. So most of the people around Indonesia are Malay, at least ethnically speaking. And it was a trader language for a while, basically just the language of business, and the local people didn't really speak it at any real level until the 1920s, when the Indonesian nationalist movement became stronger, and they needed something to unite all of the different disparate languages. So they came up with in Bahasa Indonesia, and it's actually a really unique language in that it's very, very easy to learn. It's pretty basic. The grammar isn't difficult at all. There's no tenses to speak of, which is, for someone who has taken French or studied French or Spanish even, it's the tenses is the worst. The tenses are the worst bit.
Yeah, they're joy, pure joy.
Yeah. So there's no tenses. Excuse me, Jesus, that's from the beer.
That's okay. Don't worry.
And there are so there's no tenses, and there's words from a lot of different languages that have been included. So the Portuguese were the first ones here to trade in these isles in the 15th, 16th century. So words like bicycle are zapata, which I think is close to the Spanish as well. Shoe is zapato, which is again pretty much Spanish.
Yeah, absolutely.
There
did not know that.
are,
Interesting.
for other historical reasons, namely that it was a Dutch colony for 400 years, or parts of it were Dutch colonies for 400 years. There are tons of Dutch words. So refrigerator is koelkast, which is the same in Dutch as it is in Indonesian, koelkast. What else? Wastafel, which is sink, is the same. Wastafel, washing table, literally. And a bunch of others. Basically everything that has to do with a car is Dutch as well. If you think what came here when the Dutch, what did the Dutch bring with them? Anything that the Dutch brought with them has a Dutch or even English name. And there's almost every word that has the suffix tion, so shun, is like potential, is potentie, which is another Dutch word. Complication is complicatie. So it's very easy to pick up certain things. Where it gets really difficult is, or not really difficult, but the most difficult part is there's no tenses, but there's suffixes, or there's prefixes to a lot of words. So there'll be root words, and then to make the word a verb or to make the word a noun, you'll put a prefix. So the me prefix, me or men, or meng prefix, signifies a verb, and the pe prefix signifies a noun. There's also which is like the most. So baik is good, and terbaik is the best.
Oh, okay. You got your comparatives and your superlatives and everything.
Yeah. So it's not difficult, but that's where it kind of gets a little complicated. So yeah, I think that's the best summary I can give.
Yeah, no, that works out well. Did you speak any of this beforehand? I mean, I know you spent some time in Holland before. Did that help at all?
A little bit with some of the Dutch words, but not significantly at all. When I was in the Netherlands, so the last time I went to the Netherlands, right before I came here, I studied it a bit and kind of did a not intensive course, but I kind of made a point to study it. So I put sticker notes on everything around the house to make sure to kind of remember stuff. So on a chair, I put the word kursi, which is chair. In the drawer, in the the silverware drawer, I put sendok, which is spoon, garpu, which is fork, and whatever the hell knife is. Yeah. And so did that and learned kind of the basic verbs and now and pronouns and stuff. So yeah, so I didn't know a whole lot before I came here, but I did do a little bit of studying before arriving.
All right, cool. How is your, well, I mean, the sort of $1 million question is, how is your Bahasa Indonesian at the moment? Is it, are you on a sort of conversational level? When you go to the shops, what do you speak in?
I'll do Bahasa. I'll speak in Bahasa. And so not to toot my own horn, but people are surprised at how good my Bahasa is for the length of time that I've been here. A lot of that is, I think I can just do the accent pretty well, and I can the way I speak, I've been able to kind of pick up on like the intonations, and I can roll my R's. Like kursi, the chair, kursi is kursi, so there's a little bit of a roll on the R, and to understand is, I'm just showing off now, but to understand is mengerti. So there's like a little roll, and the NG is difficult. It can be difficult as well to pronounce, but I've gotten most of the relatively difficult pronunciations down. So I think that's what kind of impresses people more than my vocabulary, which is not very big.
Still, you're going to be in a fair minority of like Westerners that can speak any Bahasa whatsoever apart from ordering beer.
Yeah, for sure. The Westerners that I hang out with, the bule is the term for Westerner here. The Westerners I hang out with, a lot of them can speak Indonesian because they've been here for a while, and are kind of based here, generally speaking. But there are guys that have been here for ages and can't speak a lick, or have awful accents and can barely get out a sentence. Actually, it's really funny. One of the guys that's lived here longest, he's actually a principal at one of the local schools, one of the local like semi-international schools. He's from down by Bournemouth.
Is this like Bournemouth,
in the UK.
England? Right,
Bournemouth, England, yeah. And he can speak Bahasa pretty well, but his accent is just British. Like there's no, it's the classic British, just kind of trying to anglicize everything and not conforming to the and just keeping your accent, not even trying to drop into the intonations of the local language.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We have that here too, which is epitomized most by David Moyes, the manager of Real Sociedad and formerly of Manchester United, whose attempts to speak Spanish are so tinged with Glaswegian that it's like there's not even any point in him trying to speak it like one bit. I'll have to put up some video of a recent press conference actually where he was discussing his transfer policy, which was fantastic. But yeah, I don't understand how people never, they I think British people especially don't make an effort really a lot of the time.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Can you do an impression of David Moyes speaking in Spanish?
Yeah, I can. What was it? Necesito más jugadores por la nueva temporada. It was like this, which I think was sort of translates as like, we need some more players for like this for the next the new game, or the new season, and it went on like for a while, and I don't know. He's up in the Basque Country as well, which is fantastic because they don't really speak. I mean, it's not Spanish isn't even the first language there, so people must. Plus, he's not winning any games too. But yeah, it's like that kind of thing that doesn't really fly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that I think is just kind of uniquely British as well. Are anglophonic at the very least. Final question about Indonesian. When you're traveling about, when you're going to Jakarta, you speak in Bahasa, yeah?
Yeah. So
Something that
yeah.
I never quite understood. It was like, obviously in Britain, when you travel around, fundamentally, with a couple of fairly notable but not huge exceptions, everyone speaks English. And the idea of like traveling to somewhere in your country where the first language isn't English, and I do reckon obviously Welsh and Gaelic are spoken to some degree, but when in a very minor sense in comparison to English in general. And in America, for example, you really have American or possibly Spanish. But the idea of kind of going to another part of America and people not being able to speak English is quite unthinkable. Is this the same kind of thing in Indonesia?
To an extent, yeah. So you go into the cities. The cities are all pretty well Indonesianized. It's pretty. If you go into a city, people are going to speak Indonesian. But the further you get into the countryside and the kampungs, which is the villages, the more and more people just speak their local language. So if you go into the middle of Java, in the middle of nowhere in Java, they're going to be speaking Javanese. If you go up into the hills in Bali or even down south, it's going to be Balinese or English even. They just skip over the Indonesian entirely. And there are, so the big regional languages are Javanese, which is Sanskrit based. So I think it's closer to like Hindi and that kind of stuff than anything else. And the same with Balinese, which is the Hindu. Balinese or Hindus. So there's the Sanskrit base as well. And those are difficult languages because they have levels. I think Javanese has like 5 different levels of depending on who you're speaking to. So like the highest level is among like the kings and the priests, and then like the middle level is kind of the normal people, I guess. I don't know. And then like they're low, yeah. And then like there's the low as well. In Balinese, I think there's 3 different levels, but I think in Javanese there's 5. And then there's languages like Sundanese, which is another language in Java. Minang, which is in Sumatra. I think that's another language. And God knows how many their languages are in like the middle of the Borneo jungle. There must be tons. So yeah,
a whole heap of them.
There's lots.
All right, what's your one's Balinese?
The one here, like the local language here, would be Balinese. Yeah. But I know like 2 phrases.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a couple of phrases. I would never need to use it because I would just never need to unless I was working like in a village in the middle of nowhere, which there aren't that many of here. But I would only if I was working in a village would I need to learn Balinese. And even that I would need to learn like the street Balinese, not the actual formal Balinese.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. No, it's I mean you're in a pretty unique situation anyway. Quick question. Bahasa Indonesian. What does it look like written? Latin.
So that's the great thing is it's Latin. Okay. The Sanskrit based ones I think are like based on Sanskrit. I don't think when you write them, I don't think that's Latin. So that's the other thing that makes it really easy is that all the words, you can just read the words normally. You don't have to learn a new alphabet. It's not like Thai or Cambodian or I guess Vietnamese has like all the little accents and stuff. But all those you need to learn a different alphabet. But Indonesian, that's what makes Indonesian really easy is you can hear the word, you can say the word, and you can also read the word pretty quickly and pick it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Only one stage of translation rather than the kind of Greek.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
and
cool.
And the other thing that makes it really easy is the way the language is spoken. So unlike French or Spanish, where you have to kind of, and this is something I've kind of realized since speaking Indonesian, is that in French and I guess to a certain degree in Spanish as well, you basically have to think of the whole sentence before you have to think of you have to know what you're going to say before the sentence comes out because of all the in French the liaison and how the words roll together and like how the tenses come together. So you have to kind of think of the whole sentence beforehand and then come out with it. Whereas in Indonesian, it's much more like English, where you can kind of think word by word, and you can think of the next word kind of without having to go back and change everything.
Oh yeah,
that makes it pretty easy as well.
Always comes down to it. Fucking French never made it easy. Never made it easy for anyone.
Yeah. Seriously. Thank God we speak English, though, right, Lou?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally the one saving grace of every day. I think, wow, that is a fucking big relief. I could be from like, what would be like a really kind of, like if you're from like Hungary or Romania or anywhere in Scandinavia actually as well, is quite limiting. Just having English is a winner. It is an absolute winner, and yeah, thank
But
the
at
old.
least, the old genes. But at least in the Scandinavian countries, they have the resources to teach English from a really early age. Mm-hmm. So that makes it pretty easy. Like, as long as you're learning it by the age of like 4 or 5, even 6 or 7, it's not that difficult. But once you get older, once you get to like our age and try and learn languages, then the cerebral cortex, or whatever the fuck it is in your brain, starts to deteriorate.
It just can't be bothered with it. Yeah, I understand. It's no, I do understand. It's actually probably worse being from somewhere like Italy. Like, that's actually like probably the sort of bottom of the barrel, where you can't speak to anyone else, but fundamentally your language is just important enough to get by in your own country for a while, but like until it's too late. Greece. Good idea. Yeah.
Greece. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking at it now. Yeah. There we go. Anyway, so you move back to America soon. Are you going to keep up your Indonesian?
Well, hopefully, because I'm hopefully be coming back. I'm not moving back. I'm just going back for the holidays. Probably. So I'll be back beginning of next month. So a couple weeks. We'll hopefully continue the podcast from there. But yeah, I'm gonna 2 months. I feel I won't forget too much, but I'll try and, I don't know, keep up on some little bit. Yeah. I mean, I should be able to fall back into it. Maybe I'm being cocky, but it's not too difficult. Oh, the thing I wanted to say about the French, though, is that as soon as I started learning Indonesian, all my French went right out my head. I've had to speak or communicate in French a couple times since I've learned Indonesian or been learning Indonesian, and when I try and speak in French, Indonesian comes out. So I'll start the sentence in French. So like, je suis da da da, and then I'll say je suis, and then I'll say an Indonesian word, or say 3 Indonesian words in a row, and not realize it, or know that I'm saying Indonesian, but just say fuck it and continue on. So yeah.
Fascinating. It's like a broken jukebox.
It is. The
CDs have got on top of each other. Yeah. I guess there's only room enough for enough. It's quite a lot of info.
Yeah.
It's got a high megabyte ratio as a language.
Yeah, there we go. I have a low megabyte brain, so
hey mate, I'm running on an Amstrad here, so don't worry. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, well, thanks very much for exposing the language of Indonesian to
my pleasure.
Probably a clueless audience of myself, which is as clueless as it gets when it comes to the Indonesian language. So we'll go on. Do you have an expat experience of the week for me this week?
I do have an expat experience of the week, and it's one after your own heart, because it involves loud noises waking me up at godforsaken hours of the morning. It seems that there is a dog street battle going on in the alleyway out in front of my house. And it's continuing right now. I don't know if the mic has picked it up, but there have been some skirmishes this evening. So the story goes, if you remember my unfortunate the dog I was taking care of died. His mother is kind of centrally located on this alley, and there's one dog from the from the homestay that we stayed at before, that we were living in before, that is really small, but he's kind of cock of the walk. He doesn't take any shit, but he's kind of a pussy. Like he's walks around like he owns the place, but he's a little thing, like most little dogs do. Think they kind of run shit
Small
when they're
man syndrome.
But
Dog syndrome.
Small dog syndrome, yeah. But he is kind of tough, and you can see he'll kind of chase you off if you fuck with him. And then there's a couple new dogs from the other side of the alley. So from down behind me, the little dog who's named Blackie, and his companion is Hitam, which means black in Indonesian. So there's two dogs, Blackie and Hitam, that's like Blackie and black. Anyway, yep. And then there's a couple other dogs from down this way that are new, and they're kind of coming in on Blackie's territory. So Blackie, and potentially on Rosie, which is the mother of the dog the puppy that died. So they're competing for, I think, territory and women, or one woman. So they were basically the shorter version of this is that they were barking the entire fucking night last night. I went to bed at 11. They were barking, and I woke up at about 5:15 with Blackie right outside my gate, causing all sorts of hell. I go downstairs, and there's like 6 dogs in front of my alley, in front of my gate, just kind of circling each other and like kind of growling at each other, and it looked like the Sharks and the Jets from West Side Story. Yeah, exactly. I thought they were going to break out in snapping and maybe a knife battle. So
all they needed was
fight.
opposable thumbs and some Levi jeans, and they were all the way there.
And some hair gel as well.
Yeah, that helped.
So yeah, that's my expat experience of the week. What about you? How did you
dog problems? No, it's a legit issue. It's anything to do with sleep. I was detecting, you are maybe slightly, is angst ridden the word, when you sort of bit of pent up frustration there for a night of no sleep, canine induced no sleep, which is not fantastic. We have that too here, which we can go into on another time. My expat experience week, well, I haven't really had a fairly quiet week. Spent the weekend in Salamanca, which I can recommend to the listener as a very beautiful city, where a good friend of ours, Colin, is also plying his trade as a spreader of the Saxon tongue to Spanish people. But yes, it was very nice to go up to Salamanca, which is a charming university city. And it is actually, in a way that Britain doesn't do on quite such regularity. It's interesting to see that a lot of Spanish cities are actually almost idyllic, and Salamanca is one of these cities. It's very, very beautiful, and very, very old, and much to my delight, has a plethora of Irish bars where you can buy Guinness, which is one thing that I really, really, really fucking miss about being here in Andalusia. It's obviously hearty stout is not the order of the day most of the time, but it was very nice to go up to a fantastic ancient university town, full of culture and interesting activities and beautiful architecture, and obviously all of these things mean a lot to Colin and I, that we bypassed them all and got very drunk in a rock bar and watched Scotland manfully scrape past Samoa at the rugby, which means we've qualified. So that it was actually very enjoyable, an enjoyable weekend, in which 2 British people spurned the storied culture of ages in order to drink the same beer as they drink at home, in kind of the same places as they drink at home, with similar people to how they, in fact, the same people as they drink at home. And the next day dealt with the same hangover as they have at home. And it was a good weekend. Fantastic.
Nice. Was it a little bit cooler up there?
Freezing. Well, no. freezing isn't the right adjective, but colder than here.
Chillier, nice and chilly.
Yes. I'm not even sure.
Nice.
Yeah, it was
nice.
it even rained, which was like not, which was good, which was good. So yeah, it was a nice.
Talk about idyllic.
It was beautiful. As I say, when you're sitting there with your head about to explode, you can watch the rain drip down the ancient citadel and not experience it at all. It's as expat an experience as you're going to get.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. Well, anyway, I think we'll wrap it up there. And again, Rowan, thanks for casting some light on the Indonesian language. Next week, we will be going into the language which I speak to a very low degree, which is Spanish, which many more of you will probably know. But the pros and cons and to's and fro's of this language will be coming to you exclusively on the Frying Pan podcast. Leaves me to say, Rowan, thank you very much for joining me. How can people get in touch with you, should they so wish?
Myself, Similong Stories, which is my blog, is late this week as it was last week. I'm not doing a very good job of keeping up on it, but I am keeping up on it. SEMAWANG stories.wordpress.com. You can get to me on Twitter at RLMKane. RLMKANE. I've actually been more active on it because I've been bored and been kind of just throwing some shit up on there. So on the Twitter, and yeah, that's about it. What about yourself, Lou? How can people get in touch with you?
Well, I mean, if they're not in the area, which I really doubt they are, they can get in touch with me via the magazine, which is talkingsoup.com. That is soup with, in the culinary sense of the word. Or they can tweet me on Talking Soup Magazine with an @ in front of it. As always, if you're on iTunes, rate the podcast, write a review, lie if you think it's terrible, tell the truth if you think it's great. It all helps us keeping things ticking over, I believe. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please tune in again next week as we will delve into the world of the Spanish language. Rowan, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Lou. Have a good week.
You too, Ron. Everybody else, adios, or hasta luego, as they say here.
Sampai jumpa.
Take care, buddy. See you later.
See you later.